Welcome to the final Zoom and Knit of the Lightweight Raglan Pullover Knit Along. I can see a bunch of you are wearing them already. Awesome. We're gonna, just while we're waiting, while people are logging in, I just have some fun, I hope, statistics for you. Now that we've wrapped up the knit along, we had a total of 12,272 people sign up for our knit along, which is absolutely bonkers. That's the craziest number. 1,082 submitted images. That's over Instagram, emailed in images, and then our gallery on our website, people submitting there. And we helped, we had a little more trouble pinning down this number, but we helped about 500 people over email with questions about their lightweight raglan pullovers during the knit along, which is amazing. Like, I feel like these numbers are kind of crazy, but those are the numbers. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's always fascinating for me to see, just from one end to another. We've been doing it since this started in January or February, was it?
February. Cast on day was in February.
February. So since February, we're in the thick of it and we're just answering the questions. But to think, 500 individual people that wrote in at one point or another, it's just really fascinating to me.
Yeah, that is a lot of lightweight raglan pullovers out in the wild. That is a lot of sweaters. Awesome. All right. Okay, people are still logging on, but I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. Before we go off gallery view, if you're wearing your sweater, or if you're still working on it, go ahead and hold it up. Mine is finished. I love it.
Yes. See? Oh, I see another of the cording stitches where it's the different color.
I see some sleeves. Sleeves are awesome. If all you have sleeves, that's still fantastic. Yes. Jaja has a sleeve too.
I'm gonna go ahead and just say it now. This is as far as I got. There is no shame.
None at all.
At one point.
Any progress is good progress. I think this is the fastest I have ever knit a fingering weight sweater. I only finished because we were doing a knit along. It usually takes me a year to do a worsted weight sweater. So the fact that I finished within the 7-month time frame to me is amazing. So congratulations to everyone, whether you finished or not. Okay. All right. So moderators, go ahead and spotlight yourselves and we will get started. Okay. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our final Zoom and Knit for the Lightweight Raglan Pullover Knit Along. If you haven't been here before, my name is Juliana. I'm the social media and outreach coordinator at Purl Soho. My co-host today is Jaja, our customer service manager, and we're also joined by Margaret and Lily from our customer service team, and we have a special guest who we will be introducing shortly. You'll hear more from Laura soon. And also, welcome back, Jaja. We missed you at the last few meetings.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be back. I think it was the last 2 or 3. It was I feel like it's been a while, but I went ahead and I peeked at the ones I missed. I didn't watch all the way to the end, but I got the general vibe, and it was just really fun to see just how the energy just stayed so warm and fun and welcoming at the very beginning. Less people over time, but I'm hoping that more came at the end just to do that final hurrah together. But it was just really nice to see. And today's all about celebrating. Whether we talked about the beginning, whether you finished or not, and even if you didn't, like myself, I already did it. We are going to continue offering support just like always. So feel free to, we'll talk about this again at the end. Just feel free to reach out anytime to customerservice@purlsoho.com, knitalong@purlsoho.com. And we also have the one-on-one meetings where we've done a few of those for this as well, where you can sign up with a member of the team and we'll just go over your problem, just one-on-one. But like Juliana said, this is a fingering weight project. It's just very impressive to have finished it. Honestly, it just really cramped up my hand, so I had to go very slowly. And so that's totally understandable. We're here for you.
Absolutely. It's a huge task. And if you're still working on it, we are still rooting for you. We're still cheering you on. You can do it. Take your time.
Yeah.
But
I
also
think we all
congratulations.
do.
Yeah.
Oh,
Take your time. It's totally fine. So yeah, since so many of us have finished our sweaters, this meeting is going to look a little different today. We're not going to be covering or demonstrating specific techniques. If you're just joining us, if you're still somewhere in the middle of your sweater, our first 4 Zoom in nets are full of demonstrations and tips. Lily is going to put all the links to watch those in the chat now. They are up on YouTube. And we walk through everything from tips for casting on to make sure you have the right length of tail, making sure your cast on's not twisted, all the way through like some demonstrations of your raglan decreases and blocking. So if you're still working on it, go ahead and check those out. And still, of course, even though we're not going to be demonstrating anything, if you have questions today, don't hesitate to let us know. You can type those questions in the chat, no matter where you are in the sweater. And if we're not able to answer right away, we do have some time set aside for Q&A at the end, and our moderator team will be saving those questions for later on in the meeting.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that I wanted to mention is that even though we're not going to be doing any demonstrations, we do have a segment that we have prepared at the end where we're going to talk about the fit and what we learned from the sweater and what we can apply towards the next sweater that you're going to be making, because we're hoping this has inspired you to take on some others. It's a pretty simple one to start, although it takes a long time because it's so thin. But the constructions, we're going to talk about the construction and other ones that can inspire you in the future when we get to that. But for now, we're going to segue into our special guest. Going to introduce Laura Ferguson. I want to make sure I get the title right, but pretty sure it's the VP of Operations and also Design Director of Purl Soho. And one more big tidbit, the designer of the Lightweight Raglan Pullover. So this is the person that made what everyone's been working on. So really excited to have you, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Laura, for coming. So we're gonna get into that interview in just a minute here. After we chat with Laura, the moment you've all been waiting for, we are going to do a live announcement of the grand prize winners of the gift cards. Hopefully some of them are here. If not, that's okay. We will be. You don't have to be here to get your prize, of course. We are going to be contacting everyone by email or DM if they entered through Instagram by the end of today. And then as always, some show and tell time. If you want to come on screen and share your sweater, finished or not, we would love to talk to you and see how it's going. And just one last reminder, we are recording this Zoom in knit to make it available later for people who couldn't join us live. If you don't wish to be recorded, you can always turn off your camera and microphone. So let's get started. Welcome, Laura.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to have Laura here today. Laura has been with Purl Soho for almost 13 years now. And has held many different roles during that time, including senior knitwear designer. So as you may have guessed, or as Jaja told you, Laura is the designer of the Lightweight Raglan Pullover, which came out, we just looked it up today, May 31st, 2016. So this pattern's been around for a little while. Laura also designed a lot of my favorite, Purl Soho patterns, including the garter ear flap hat, the boyfriend hat, our top-down turtleneck sweater, our arched gusset mittens, many more. There was, I believe it was like 2 years ago, I was making hats for everybody, and I realized at one point every hat I made that year was a Laura design.
Yeah, the Laura loops.
Yeah, I made the garter ear flap hat, I made the boyfriend hat, I made the top-down ear flap hat, and all of a sudden I was like, there is a serious trend going on here. All right, and then also, you may recognize Laura's voice. She is the voice behind almost all of our tutorial videos. So if she sounds familiar to you, that's probably where you heard that. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much. I have to admit, this is like really overwhelming and just absolutely incredible. I'm really blown away by the participation we've seen in this knit along, and I definitely did not. It is still completely shocking to me anytime I see anyone even like trying to make one of my patterns, let alone wearing one. So excuse me if I'm a bit, flustered, but this is just like so joyful and exciting and overwhelming. but I'm so impressed how many people have participated. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And just a lot of us just find you so inspiring too. I remember when I first started working here and was meeting everyone, and I went back to reference a video just because you forget how to do an SSK or make one left and which way to pull it. And then I just had a thought of going, that's my boss now. It's so funny. Just whenever I hear it, it's just really interesting to go back and just recognize the tutorials when I was learning it and just going, wow, I remember you've been there all along in a weird way. So it's really funny. So I just hope everyone else just has that little memory tied to this sweater now. And it really is a popular sweater for first-time knitters. And that leads into the first question is, what was your first sweater?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I'm so surprised to hear this is popular for first-time sweaters, just for first-time sweater knitters, just because I feel like anything, thinner than like DK weight is like just such a lift in general. And then to make an entire garment out of it, I'm like very, very impressed with anyone that this might be their first sweater. My first sweater was definitely not this thin of yarn. I think I knitted in Shepherd's Dream. I think this is before I worked at Purl Soho. Now I'm a bit of a loyal, brand loyalist. It was a pattern called Mary Jane, and I think the designer is Sarah Moore. And it was like a raglan, and it had like 2 different stitch patterns. It had like puffy sleeves. I mean, this is like back in 2008. And I, of course, like had to modify it, even though I'd never knit a sweater before. And I learned a lot, and I wore it until it was completely threadbare. And it was before I was as into mending as I am now. And so I'm sure it like hit the Goodwill pile at some point. But yeah, it was a great piece and a great, everything you knit, right, is like a learning experience in some way or another.
Absolutely. I know I learned a lot from my first sweater. I learned a lot of things I don't like about sweaters from
Totally.
which I think is a pretty common experience. But I still have it and I still wear it sometimes. But all right. So also, as we mentioned, Laura, you're the design director here at Purl Soho.
Yes.
So we just wanted to ask, like, what are your design influences and inspirations, and what do you think are the characteristics of a quintessential Purl Soho pattern?
Ooh, juicy question. Influences, let's see here. I really came up like through the Purl Soho ranks. So our founder CEO, Joelle Hoverson, she has a book called Last Minute Knitted Gifts. And I'd say I learned a lot there. And I learned a lot about how to knit just through the old Purl Soho blog, which used to be called the Purl Bee. And that was like all before I joined the company. So like the big influence really is Purl Soho, as maybe, cliche as that is to say. But I'd say another big influence is Elizabeth Zimmerman. I think she's just absolutely brilliant and cheeky, and has this like wonderful approach to yarn and construction, and she like really she has this book called The Opinionated Knitter. If anyone hasn't read it, I like really recommend it, especially this time of year. I probably pick it up once a year, but she really like helped me see stitches as like these like teeny tiny units of measurement. And so for me, my background's all in interior architecture, and I loved building models in school. And so when I very first started like knitting and designing, reading her book, I was just like, oh, I'm just making this like really soft 3-dimensional model that like I'm going to put my head and arms through. Like, and then once I started thinking about it like that, it's just like, I was just like, raglans were like making little stairs. And I don't know, it just kind of, for me, it all came together in that way. And, so anyway, Elizabeth Zimmerman is a huge influence. She's just like her construction, her like approach, her like no nonsense attitude, and like the way she like respects that it's like made with human hands and like everything's going to be like slightly imperfect and like personal to you. I love that whimsy. I mean, maybe I wouldn't describe her as whimsical, but
Yeah.
but yeah, so she's a huge influence. And then gosh, I don't know, I think probably again back to my architecture training, probably a lot of just like a lot of structures, honestly, a lot of buildings, a lot of materials, like whether or not they're, you know, fabric or not, just like for me, that like marrying a perfect material with what you're trying to build, I feel like that's really present in knitting. So it's like a lot of, I don't know, anyway, a lot of influences I'm like obviously just can't think of. Right. But for knitting, definitely Elizabeth Zimmerman. But there's so many brilliant people out there in our community, and I mean, I'm inspired constantly by first time knitters, seasoned knitters, old books. Like I have my grandmother's whole like old collection, and just like, you know, Aran sweater pamphlets one after the next. I can't get enough. But let's see. So then part 2 was the Purl Soho quintessential Purl Soho pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right on. Okay. Oh gosh, now you're gonna have to like give me a time limit. Juicy question. Okay, I would say, well, first and foremost, I hope, I mean, my aim, I think the company's aim, I hope that like every pattern is like really empowering. I think something we always try to do is like present things in an approachable way and make them like very like educational along the way. And like I think of a lot of our like quintessential patterns are like something very basic, and there's just like one new technique you learn. And so for me, when I was coming up and like learning how to knit and learning new techniques, that was like so addictive to me. Like I felt like every pattern was a stepping stone. And I like really hope that we still like imbue that into all of our patterns. So I think like, you know, we really want to inspire people to like make things with their hands. And so in each pattern, I want there to be like this kind of like empowering nature to it, an educational aspect. And then, oh gosh, what else? I think our like the look of our things is like oftentimes kind of modern. And by that, I mean like it's kind of stripped down. Like oftentimes we'll like brainstorm about something, or somebody will pitch something, and usually it's like the taking away of something, like of it taking away of an element is like what really makes it successful. We really like a whole fabric of cloth. We like the selvages to be like really intentional and like not interrupt the like field of the fabric. And so I think there's like something very like kind of modern about that. And I think another characteristic is timeless, like our patterns being timeless. Like you could, you know, this sweater, I wrote this pattern. Let's see, if it published 6 years ago, it probably wrote it 7 years ago. And, you know, that's a long time for people to still want to be making a pattern. Like not all knitwear is that way. A lot of things kind of come in and come out. And I think we try to really have a longevity to our work. Okay, so that's look. What else? Okay. I swear I won't go on too long, but I think that like, maybe I mentioned this a second ago, but like another thing I really think we focus on is like really making sure we're pairing a yarn and what we're trying to accomplish, like a yarn and a structure really intentionally. Like we spend all of this time developing our own yarns. And a lot of times when we design patterns, we really want to let that yarn sing. We want to give it the spotlight. Like, I mean, even this sweater, right? It's just fields of, not this sweater, y'all sweaters. It's like fields of stockinette, but it like lets the linen come out. It lets you like see the characteristics, and it lets like, you know, the simplicity of the sweater, it like lets you like really experience the drape. Like there's the buoyancy of the wool, but there's also the heaviness of the linen. And like, what does that do together combined with the twist? So we always try to make, I think, everything like make sure the yarn and the structure of what we're making is like as well paired as possible. And then to like further that idea, not to get like too meta, but I think like we always try to make our patterns like as well. I say this and then I'm like, I'm gonna have like all of you who have knit this sweater being like, I see a lot of room for improvement, but give it with a grain of salt. The goal is to write a pattern that is like written as simply and cleanly as the finished object ends up being. Like I would never, I don't want to torture people. I want like during the process of making it, like I want it to be like I want it to feel like inherent while you're in it. Like you're like, naturally, I'm doing these decreases at this rate. And the way it's written is very clear that, you know, there's a nice rhythm to it. It's repeating. We never want our patterns to be like messier than like the end product we're trying to make. So for me, when I was pattern writing, that was like a really big puzzle for me. It's like, oh, well, I could knit things for myself, for instance, this, but like to write this pattern out is like kind of bananas, and I probably wouldn't torture anybody with doing that many purls through the back loops. Like that would be evil. So anyway, and then like the last and definitely not least, I would say is color. Like we're all just like color fanatics. Joelle, our CEO, our founder, she is an MFA. And she's like a brilliant painter. She's a ceramicist. One of the other owners is a really incredible ceramicist, and her whole training is in styling. And she has this like eye for shapes and forms and color. And I think, and then another person on the executive team, and Whitney Van Ness, who is probably another one of my biggest knitting influences. She was the senior knitwear designer before I was. Wits Knits, for any of you guys who've been around a long time. She also is an incredible artist. And so like I would say the thing we all struggle with the most when we're like in a design meeting is like is getting like totally tied in knots over like, is this blue or is this green? You know, we like, that's how just like obsessed with color I'd say everybody is. And I think we're really trying to like bring joy and whimsy and excitement into the world, like through the yarn. And again, like, anyway, so color is a big thing. Anyway, I'll stop.
Totally.
I could go on.
I've been here for 8 years. I started out working in the warehouse, and the color was always something I noticed working in the warehouse, seeing our yarn on the shelves in like that quantity. You see the palette, and like, I know my coworkers and I in the warehouse, we would always notice like as the palette shifted, like there was
totally.
When I started, we were really into pinky browns. There were lots of pinky browns and oranges and the neons,
underwear,
and the neutrals,
like underwear, mothy pink. So good.
Yes, so good.
So good.
Like it's kind of like the peach stone color is sort of like part of that age, and like we've totally seen like the palette shift to now we've got like these really juicy sort of jewel tones coming in that I love. And so I love it. And I gotta say, like, this sweater is such a fun opportunity to pick a color you love and like revel in it. It's so good.
It's just like an envelope. You're just like in this envelope of a color, and it's like you get to like live that life of that person that day you put it on. It's great.
Totally.
It's great.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. So very educational. So good to hear about that background stuff.
Yeah. No, but it's, for me, the thing that I gravitated towards from what you were saying for the quintessential patterns was just how you're not trying to show off, you know, it's not for the sake of being difficult, you know, just like, I come from an educational background. And so for the customer service, you know, we have to explain things, like that's what we do. And I really enjoy our patterns because for the most part, we can always improve, but we really have that step-by-step. We try to be clear. And even with our tutorials, you know, the video tutorials, the picture tutorials, there's a certain just rhythm to it. Like we just try to no nonsense, get right to it. And that's just something that I've always appreciated about it. And so it helps me explain as well. I don't have to spend as many hours like just deciphering it and being like, why did we do this? You know?
That experience of like having to write and then do the tutorials, especially on film, really very sweaty moments for me. But it does, it's like really changes the way you write patterns.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you back in the day, before we had such an incredible, robust customer service team, every designer answered their own questions on their own patterns. So if you've been designing for a while and you're designing 40 patterns a year, all of a sudden you have no time to design because you have to answer questions. But when you're the one receiving those questions, you're like, I see, this is our community is so incredible and brilliant in this way. And it's like this mirror that you don't always want, but man, does it push you and push you and push you to become a better designer. In terms of the written type of designing, because again, a lot of people can design a sweater and knit it for themselves, but writing a pattern, it's a very different beast when you're anyway. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay. No, it goes into the next question because it was calling back upon how, you do the tutorials for us.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned mending earlier, and I think that was one of the most recent mending, the mending mushrooms that we did. Okay. But the next question was going to be, do you have any favorite techniques or finishing techniques? I think it was particularly just, do you have a favorite technique or one that you gives a particularly nice finish to knits?
I think I mentioned this earlier, I really love a considered edge. So it kind of doesn't matter if you're making something as simple as a scarf or you're doing a cardigan or a turtleneck or, whatever it is. I really want an edge to be nice. Yeah, I love a very clean selvage. Even when I swatch, I'm almost always have a one column of garter along the edge of my stockinette swatches, and I just want everything. I love a very considered edge. I guess to that point, one of my favorite things is to knit in an I-cord for a cardigan. Again, it goes back to that very it really simplifies the piece if there's no extra band, if you can do it all in one fell swoop instead of having to pick up later. So yeah, I just love that. Very tidy, a lot of tidiness, I guess. But what other techniques? I love the basics. I love, I even with increasing and decreasing, I love an SSK and knit two together, make one right, make one left. I'll do a lifted increase, sure, but no, if you can make the basics work for you and make them dance, do it. I think that's the brilliance of knitting, right? There's knitting and there's purling, and then the world is your oyster. But yeah, I guess favorite techniques are probably, really probably all revolving around selvage stitches. Yeah, really. I think it's what finishes.
I kind of want to just if there was a picture of you in a little book, I think I would put in cursive, I love a considered edge. I like that. I'm just gonna
that's your yearbook caption.
Yeah, that's my yearbook quote.
Yes.
No,
awesome.
It's true. I think in terms of anyway, and moving on.
Yes, moving on. I wanted to read out real quick there. I don't know if you're keeping an eye on the chat, Laura, but there's some people talking to you in the chat. Robbie Van Gelder said, Laura, you designed a great sweater and the pattern is so well written. No wonder you've had such a big turnout for the KAL. Thank you for giving us the pattern. T Dishy said, I love this pattern. Amy Golemi, who we've seen at all the Zoom.
Yes,
hi, Amy.
we did Zoom.
We've also emailed a lot. Hi, Amy. Your tutorials, patterns, and personal help is what has me addicted to Purl Soho. No company has a better customer service offering. You are all very appreciated. That was for Jaja and the
Jaja.
Pam said all the tutorials are fabulous. Barbara said you all have the best patterns, tutorials, and yarns. That's why I did my first KAL with you. Kira said this pattern was definitely intuitive, but challenging at the same time, and also not so challenging that you couldn't frog and fix mistakes, which I think is a great point.
Oh my God.
I will not fix a mistake in brioche or fisherman's rib. If I make a mistake in brioche or fisherman's rib, it lives there. It's part of the project. But that is totally, that's a great point. This is stockinette. I will go back and fix a mistake. So great point, Kira.
or fixing mistakes too, because I know for a while I was
Absolutely.
intimidated by it. Just get that little
Yes.
crochet hook.
Yes, I know. I have taught many people how to fix mistakes. I just, when it comes to fisherman's rib and brioche, I usually say it probably looks fine. All right. So one last question, Laura. Since you you know, you are such a design pro, you work with the you know, patterns that come into us. And I know for lots of people, as you were saying, when you knit your first sweater, you made modifications right off the bat. And you're not alone. We have seen so many modifications in this knit along, which is fantastic. There was somebody who posted on Instagram, I don't know if you're here, who added some Fair Isle around the waist.
Oh, cool.
Somebody else who added cables down the sleeves. Really beautiful modifications out there. And that seems to be sort of like modifying your own stuff is sort of the stepping stone to then creating patterns, because of course people then say, how do I do that too? So we're wondering if you have any advice for budding designers out there.
Oh gosh. Advice for budding designers. Just like learn to love to swatch, and like know your fabric, like know how it, like know how it's going to drape, know how it's going to wear, put it in the bottom of your purse for a week, like love your fabric to really understand how to design for it. Or if you have a design in mind, like swatch until you get the right fabric for that design. And that's all like kind of technical. I would say like really just like explore and be curious and like poke around and like look at other people's work and like see, you know, I don't know, like kind of like what makes your like brain tingle, and then just like chase the dragon, like just like play. Like I feel like knitting can feel like really like technical and stodgy and like, but I don't think it has to be. And I think there's like, you always learn something along the way, so it's never, even though it's like a very slow craft, it's not wasted time if you're like enjoying it. So I don't know, maybe I'm like doing too many like counselor poster quotes today. I need to like take it back. But I think just like try and like enjoy it, and you're gonna like learn to like some stitch that you just love, and you'll end up making like 4. That's what happens to me. I get like obsessed with one stitch, and then I'm like I need a vest, and I need a sweater, and I need a hat knit, and then you're like, now I move on to my like blue phase or whatever, you know. But yeah, I just, oh, and I guess then the other thing I would say is like, don't be afraid of piecing. I feel like a lot of people like are like, oh, I don't want to knit anything if you have to piece it. I feel like when you really learn what you've designed, you like love piecing it, because like the sides match up perfectly. It's like such a like trophy over the head moment. It's like,
totally,
you know, it
totally.
feels so good.
I do sometimes feel like sewing your knits together is a little bit different skill than knitting. So it does take some practice to get to the same level of like competency in sewing your knits together as knitting, but you still have to practice it. And I mean, there's certain things, I know Julie Hoover, who designs for us a lot, she always puts shoulder seams because it gives your shoulder structure. Like you can pick up your stitches, you can do fake shoulder seams, but it's not going to have the same structure as an actual seam, because that's holding a lot of the weight of the garment. So yeah, I think sewing is a very important skill. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's just like, think of it as like, you know, hours or half hours or whatever of just getting to like fondle your knit. It's like, it just sits in your lap. Great. It's like not a bad time way to spend your time.
Yeah, and mattress stitch really is the most magical thing. Like when you pull that string and it just zips shut and it's like there's nothing there, it feels so good.
Yeah. Legendary.
Yeah, we have one question in the chat for you, Laura. Tracy asked, Laura, do you find having people test knit your designs helps you write easy to follow patterns?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I will share some very behind the scenes information, I guess. So Juliana mentioned I've been with the company almost 13 years, and I think some people kind of get this idea that we're like quite big organization, but it's really not very many of us at all. And I'm really happy. The company's only 20 years old, and I've been here for, you know, a lot of it, and we've really grown up a ton. And when I was first starting out, kind of I was mentioning like when I was first starting out designing for Purl, like I had to answer all my own questions. I knit all my own samples. You know, we've like grown a lot since then. Now we have a lot more like test knitting and rounds of like more and more rounds of tech. And, you know, a lot of that's because y'all have like been so loyal and wonderful towards us that we can add in all those extra steps, and we have the resources to like make our product better and better for you. And but yeah, when I was first starting out, like I didn't have all my pieces test knit. Like I knit them all. But the problem with the knitter being, you know, the designer knitting all their own samples is like, you know what you want to do. So like sometimes, you know, I mean, I had a tech editor, but anyway, we've grown up a lot. And I would say that yes, having things test knit is an absolute like wonderful, like, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity, but it feels like a luxury now since I came from the era of us not having it. And our sample makers and test knitters are some of our like just like best community members. They're like the first people who see our patterns before like the masses do, and their feedback is so invaluable, and they will like really push us. They're like, you've got to figure out a new way to write this paragraph. Like, you know, they'll like really be like, you know, and if you have a test knitter who's getting stuck on a pattern that's supposed to be simple, like you gotta, you know, you're like, well, okay, I gotta listen. You can't ignore it. But yeah, I would say not just our test knitters make us all better designers, but I would say all of y'all do. All of the comments you send in, all the questions you send in, like it just like pushes us like more tutorials, better tutorials, like video and still tutorials. Like, you know, we try to keep up with all the requests, and it's great. You guys, you know, you hold the bar up high, and it's really incredible to work for a company that like appreciates that and wants that, and like wants to serve up these things like perfectly to you. And we know we can't always, and then we can rely on y'all to like make us better. So it's anyway, I totally lost track of the question. Was that apparent? I'm so sorry.
I think about there. So Tracy was asking, does it help people, test knitting help you write easy to follow patterns? And absolutely, because
yes, I could have said
test knitters find what we might think is easy just because we designed it. So
yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah, it's like for me something might seem intuitive, and then it's like, well, you have a crazy brain, Laura, so that's not intuitive to anyone else, you know. So yeah, tech editing, sample making, all of it. Yeah, it's a process getting an idea from in here like out onto the internet.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for the question, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, no, that's an extra fun one. And like Laura said, just it's you guys too. It's the customers, because we'll do all the testing, we'll do all the back and forth, and then we'll put it out into the world. And then that inbox goes click, 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 click. On the website, on the inbox, social media.
Yeah, like at the top of the call, Juliana, you said you had like 500 emails. Like my heart sank. I was like, why? Why were there so many questions? Like I was like, I hope that's just people wanting to talk about color, because like otherwise I'm gonna like shrink away in shame.
No. These are it is a joy to help those 500 people. I mean, like we had questions, and I mean, definitely we see commonalities, and that's something that I know Jaja does all the time. I'm not really in the email inbox as often as Jaja. When we start getting that question over and over is when we're like, oh, we got to look at this pattern.
Yeah, and we came up with the 2 at a time magic loop because of it. And that's not something that when we first launched the knit along we had that. And so we're really excited that you guys were so vocal, and we hope you continue to be vocal so that we can just make the next one better, because we're really excited. We'll talk about it later, but we're going to keep doing knit alongs. We're really happy about this. And so I think that's the end of our question segment. Thank you, Laura, so much. That was just really insightful and a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here.
Yes, and thanks for designing this sweater. Like you can see the comments that we read out, just the participation.
Like baby Laura, I can't even remember. It was so long ago.
But
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Laura. All right. So we're going to talk briefly about lessons you can learn from your finished sweater. Laura and I both kind of talked about our first sweaters. I know my very first sweater, I spent all this money on yarn. I spent months knitting, found out so many things had gone wrong in the middle, and I didn't know till I was sewing it together. And then I got the whole thing sewed together, and it was huge. It was, I think that's a really common thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, besides that, though, even since that first one, which was, oh gosh, maybe 20 years ago, I'm still learning things from sweaters that I make now. Maybe not quite as drastic of a lesson these days, but there's always something that surprises me or teaches me something new. So I kind of think of it as doing like a little post-mortem of your project when you're done, just to see like what went right, what went wrong, what can I do differently next time. So one thing I did with this sweater, and I don't always do this, but I would say about 50% of the time I do. After I had blocked this sweater, I laid it out flat and I measured it and compared it to the pattern schematic. On the last page of our pattern, there is a schematic. I don't check all the measurements, but I always check, or if I'm going to do this, I definitely check the chest measurement, and I check the length of the body and the sleeves. So for instance, for my sweater, I knit the size 44, which is supposed to be 44 inches around. My actual sweater is 45 inches around. So I was off by an inch. It could be a gauge issue. It could be that I should have maybe blocked it a little narrower, but it worked out. I mean, I'm very happy with the fit. My actual chest measurement is 44 inches, 45 inches. That's my full bust measurement. My high bust measurement is 42 inches. So for me, this is like just the right fit. Yeah, so I think that's something good to check, because I've definitely knit sweaters. There's another sweater I know you guys saw me wear a couple Zoom and Knits ago, my Felix sweater, which is a pretty popular pattern. I made it in our linen quill worsted. I did my gauge swatch. I followed the instructions. I tried the sweater on for the first time, and I was like, this is huge. I measured it. It came out the exact size it was supposed to. I had made a 50-inch sweater. It turned out 50 inches wide. I just realized now maybe I don't like a 50-inch sweater, even though that was what the pattern recommended. So I think it's still something to just to check in with your sweater. What do you like? What do you not like about the ease? I certainly hope everybody blocked their sweater, because that makes a big difference.
I wish I had a before and after of just the ones I saw Lily and Margaret do, for example, just kind of teeny tiny, and then afterwards, drape.
Yes,
Magic.
absolutely. Yeah, I just had somebody, a friend, not knit along friend, but a friend of mine who is making the sweater texted me her sweater this week. It was like, it's too small. I think I've made a mistake. And my first question was, did you block it? And the answer was, no, I did not. And I said, don't panic. So, definitely block it. Another good thing to check is the sleeve and body length. So I lengthened the sleeve and body of my sweater because I'm tall. And, I measured while I was knitting. I think when I was knitting, I was going for like 2.5 inches. But after blocking, it actually only ended up being 2 inches longer than the pattern called for. But I mean, it's just right for my arms. And so, I mean, I have a note, like I've seen, I don't know if you saw this on Instagram, Jaja, somebody just posted this week their finished sweater, and their sweater notebook, where they have a journal with all their notes of their sweater measurements and a little swatch of the yarn that they're keeping.
Ooh, I did not see that.
Thought, I'm not that organized, but I was like, what a clever idea. Because I wrote down this time to talk to you guys that like, oh, my sleeves are 19.5 inches long, and I'm really happy with them. When I make my next sweater, I am definitely not going to have this piece of paper. So I'm going to have to pull this sweater out of my closet and measure my sleeves again. But I thought that was so clever of her to have a notebook where she can refer back to that.
I call it a tally notebook, where I take my tallies and all my notes afterwards, but I never considered doing like a post-mortem notes after. And so I'll put at the beginning what needles I wound up using based on my gauge. But but yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. And I love the idea of like the swatch too.
Yeah, I thought it was very clever. I do sometimes keep track of that on Ravelry when I've made significant changes to a pattern. I will note on Ravelry what changes I've made. But you know, it's still that information about the length of the sleeves is really good information for next time, knowing that these 19.5 inches sleeves are pretty much perfect on me. They go exactly where I want them to. They're not too long, not too short. So next time I'm doing a pattern, I don't have to measure my arm and be like, oh, I think I want it 2 inches longer. I just know I want that sleeve 19.5 inches long. Yeah. And then of course, just thinking about like, oh, what was that, Laura?
Oh, can I come back? I just have so many.
Please come back. Yes.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, 2 notes on that is that, like, one of the best tips I ever got, this maybe goes back to like when you become if you're up and coming, want to design something, is like having a favorite sweater that you love and you love the fit of it, and to like just measure it out, draw that in a notebook, like, you know what thickness it is. And then if you're making a similar sweater, you can compare those schematics of being like, well, I know I love the fit of this. And obviously like thickness, like a fingering weight sweater versus like a bulky weight sweater will feel very differently. The dimensions will be very differently. It might fit you the same, but the thickness of the fabric have to take that into account. And then your note about the sleeves, another really great measurement to take is from the center back to the cuff, because if, let's say you're looking at a sweater and the body of the sweater is quite wide, let's say it's like very generous ease in the body, so your sleeves are going to be shorter because the side of your sweater is ending or starting, that much farther out. And so I find that measurement really, really helpful. Like, I always know I'm like somewhere around like 26.5 or something. Like you end up having these numbers kind of like, seared into your head and eventually, but that notebook thing that's a gold mine. If you do a postmortem of everything you knit, is like, you won't regret it. I promise you that. It's
right. Yes, totally agree. That is a great tip. I've actually never tried that center of the back. I sew a lot, so that is a measurement I am familiar with for, adjusting sewing patterns. Not one I've thought to apply to my knits, though. That is a really fantastic tip. Yeah, I do know, another one, like how I was saying, the difference between my high bust and full bust. And we talked about this at the beginning of the knit along for how to select a size. But something I learned from my first few sweaters is I was going by my full bust measurement, and they were all too big because my shoulders are a little narrow for my relative build. When I switched to going by my high bust, the consequence was that I then went down a size in everything I knit and got a really great fit in the shoulders. Yeah. And knitting tends to be stretchy. So, but again, that's something that you're going to learn from knitting sweaters, from measuring them, from thinking about how they fit, and taking some notes for next time. Totally. And then, the other things to think about when you've knit a sweater is the actual design elements. What do you like? What do you not like? I told Laura the other day when we were getting ready, no offense, I'm not actually a fan of a crew neck sweater. And this is just, again, something that I know from knitting sweaters, even from wearing commercially made sweaters. You can learn that, like, maybe you're not a fan of a crew neck sweater. Different types of shoulder constructions fit different people differently. So you may find, I enjoy a raglan. I believe if you have broader shoulders, raglans are not quite as good of a fit because there's not a lot of ease in the top of the shoulders. So if you have really square shoulders, you may find that a raglan feels a little tight right here. So then maybe next time you want to look for a drop shoulder or a set-in sleeve. But, again, all just things to try it on. Look at yourself in the mirror. What do you like? What do you don't like? What type of sweater should you do next time? And then not only does that lead to selecting a different sweater, that may lead you to making modifications. Margaret, who's here with us, left out these short rows in the curved hem because she preferred a straight hem. Something I saw a couple people mention on Instagram this week is the possibility of adding waist shaping next time. And again, this is personal preference. One of the Purl Soho trademarks, I think, is that our sweaters don't have waist shaping. It makes them very forgiving, they, work on a broader range of body types, people, genders, makes them a lot more neutral, I guess, in my mind. But you may find for yourself that you prefer the look of a sweater or the fit of a sweater if it has waist shaping. And that's something that's really pretty easy to add into a sweater that doesn't have waist shaping. So another thing to try is maybe you just want to try something totally different next time, especially if this is your first sweater. This, it was knit from the bottom up. It was raglan. Very common, I would say, first sweater construction, first sweater style. But it's always fun to try something new. How Laura was saying, everything you knit is a stepping stone to learn something new. So you may want to try next time a top-down sweater. Lily's going to be putting some links in as I talk, just of some Purl Soho patterns that might be something to consider. So some of our favorite top-down sweaters would be our daily pullover. And especially if you love your lightweight raglan pullover, you're probably going to love the daily pullover. It's also knit out of linen quill. It's also a raglan. So it's going to have that same like soft and light feel, but it's a V-neck and it's top down. So you're still doing something different. You're still learning something. Our Amphora pullover, which came out recently, would also be a great, very, I would say, beginner to advanced beginner friendly top down sweater.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to talk real quick before we get to the other, because I know there's different types we're going to talk about. But my first sweater was a top-down sweater, which was really interesting. And I feel like it got me in the construction mode a lot faster. And, you have to set up your markers, and there's usually the 4 points, and you have to pay attention to the increases and the decreases. And then you do the sleeves later. But it's also really fun because you can try it on as you're going. So those are always like an extra. I actually find top-down sweaters a little easier to start with because of that. So it's like you can, if you put it on a loose needle, you can put it overhead, make sure just as you're going, it's like, okay, this is what I want. So it's another good
trying on a top-down sweater. I try it on when I finish the collar. I try it on halfway through the increases. I try it on before I do. I can't stop trying.
Just take the pictures in the meantime. It gets you going a lot more.
Yeah,
you're a lot more excited, so it goes faster. I feel like.
Yeah, you get to those juicy, exciting parts quickly.
Right away.
Yeah,
and then but then it's Sleeve Island at the end, which is the drawback.
We were talking. I'm on Sleeve Island right now with a couple sweaters, but it's still if this was your first sweater, or if maybe your first couple sweaters. Totally a great choice is to try a top-down sweater next. You could also try a totally different sweater. This is a pullover. Why not try a cardigan? I actually mostly knit cardigans. I'm a big fan of cardigans. Our top-down turtleneck cardigan, designed by Laura, is a great option. And also our sea sweater coat, which is designed by Brandy Cheyenne Harper. That would kind of be a fun one right now. It's in woolly wool, so you could probably finish it. If you're coming off of a fingering weight sweater, moving to a bulky, I think the sea sweater coat's on like 15s or 17s. I mean, that sweater's it's gonna fly by. You're gonna blink and it's gonna be done. It's gonna be really satisfying. Also, another thing to try that would be really fun is some texture or cables. I mean, the stockinette is beautiful. It really lets linen quill shine. But I know we heard from a lot of people, and I totally felt it, when you're in the body and it's just stockinette forever, it can get a little, it plods a little. So sometimes doing something with cables or texture, I find following that pattern really keeps me motivated, keeps me moving. Our botanical yoke pullover would be a good option. It's also knit from the bottom up, so it's going to have a very similar feeling construction. It's going to feel very familiar, but then it has a beautifully cabled yoke for something different.
Yes, and there's also, if you like, another thing I like about that is the rib. So it's a lot more generous in how it fits,
a little more forgiving.
A little more forgiving, thank you, exactly. So it stretches pretty well. But if you like cables like I do, you can also match with your pup if you have one. I've made one. We have a botanical yoke dog pullover, dog sweater we call it. So you can do one for you, one for your friend.
Yeah. Or even that could be your different thing, is doing a dog sweater because it's going to be really fast again compared to a human fingering weight sweater.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then another good option back on that, in the vein of, something that's going to go really fast, are seed pod pullover. That's another one that's on, that one I think is 17s and 19s. It has a cabled, or not cabled, just a knit and purl texture panel down the front that's really beautiful. And it's really fun. And then another option, so now, everything we've talked about so far is pretty, standard construction, even if it has, a different, slightly different shoulder construction, still, you're knitting either from the top down or the bottom up. It follows the general archetype of a sweater, but there are a lot of sweaters out there with unusual construction, which again, I find very fun because it's a little more magical how they come together. Our thistle yoke pullover is really beautiful. That's in good wool, and you actually knit the yoke sideways with short rows. So you cast on just like, I don't know, I forget how many stitches it is exactly, but a couple inches here, and then you knit all the way around the yoke, shaping it with short rows. Then you pick up stitches around the bottom and knit the rest coming down. And it's like such an unusual start. It creates a really beautiful look around the top. And again, you're going to learn something new. We've done short rows in this sweater. You're going to really be doing short rows in the thistle yoke sweater.
Short row master.
Yeah, it's very fun. I haven't done the whole sweater, but I think I did 2 panels of the yoke to test out a question for a customer, and it was very satisfying. I really loved it.
It's in garter too.
It is in garter.
And so short rows and garter are more fun because you don't have to pick up any wraps. They hide in the purl bumps. So it's very,
you don't have to worry about German short rows. You don't have to worry about picking up the wrap. You just turn around and you come back and it's gone, and it's really good.
It's good.
It's magic.
Yeah. That's designed by Ainur Birkenbayeva, who she does really fascinating, unusual constructions. Yeah, and then we also recommend her center point popover. Again, this one is totally different. I don't know if you've seen it. Lily is going to put the link in the chat. You essentially knit a square first, but you start at the center and you increase out, doing 4 rows of increases. Then you do the same square for the back. Then you put them together. Totally unusual, not going to be like any other sweater, but you're going to learn a lot. It's really fun. And it's so cool when you knit this weird kind of jellyfish shape, and then you make another one, and then all of a sudden it's a sweater. It's like such a aha moment when you get to that point of the pattern. Yeah.
I have that in the back. I should have brought it out. It looks like a little envelope when you fold it over.
It does.
I've never seen something done in the round when it's connected where it just looks like a very long rectangle. Yeah. It's a little opening in the middle. It looks fascinating. I love that one.
Yeah, it's super cool. So, I mean, just take that idea of that sort of growth mindset. I know that sounds very corporate, but it is something that I do try to apply to my own knitting, where I want to learn something new, look at something from a different angle. Laura, we have one more question in the chat for you.
Yes.
Amy asked, what sweater are you wearing? And then she also said, thank you for all this. It's been such fun. Almost done. Decided to do a funnel neck finish. So working that out now. I've learned so much from you all. Okay, so Laura, tell us about your sweater.
I'm a very, very big fan of the funnel neck. I have the top-down turtleneck cardigan, turtleneck funnel neck. This sweater it's a little narrow in the neck. It's not a pattern we have on the website, but it is it's a riff on I'm gonna get the name wrong, the top-down twisted rib pullover. The twisted rib pullover.
Who can Google it the fastest?
It was in worsted twist, and it also probably came out in like 2007. No, not 2007. 2017.
Twisted rib pullover, 2016. Yeah. 2016.
It's top down. It's a raglan, and it's a 1x1 rib, and it's a half twisted rib. And after I designed that sweater, I made myself a vest version. So I did the yoke, but then stopped the sleeves and worked the front and worked the back. And sorry. Is this really annoying? And then instead of like casting on for underarm stitches, I just like kept doing the raglan really deep, like until I got the width of the front and back I wanted. And then it's just joined, and you can see the back is a little longer.
Okay.
But I made it, and then I wore it. I like am not. I have it upstairs, and it's like it's just like it's a matted mess. I moved to Maine. I started wearing it when I was like stacking logs and wood piles. I mean, it is like it's a farm sweater now. So I had to make a fresh one. And so this is a riff on that one. And this is with 1 strand of linen quill and 1 strand of line weight, both undyed, the heirloom white. And instead of doing a 1x1 half twisted rib, I did a 2x2 half twisted rib. But anyway, if you look at the twisted rib pullover, you could like hodgepodge this together. And if you can't, just holler and we'll help you figure it out.
Yeah, email.
Awesome. I love that adventurous sense of like,
yeah, it's just
what can I do with this pattern next? How can I really like make it my own? It's really, really nice.
All the patterns we designed, we like, we hand them over to the Purl Soho archives. And so when I was a knitwear designer, I spent, however many hours there are in a week, I spent all of those knitting and owned 0 sweaters, like 0 sweaters, 0 hats, like nothing. And then when I changed roles and stopped knitting for the company, I just went completely mad and had to like remake versions of every sweater I ever designed. So I have a lot of like Frankenstein Purl Soho pattern sweaters, but
anyway. I love it.
Awesome. I would love to see that.
I don't think we have any Q&A today. Moderators, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we had any technical questions today. Of course, if you do have a technical question, let us know. We're here to help. Customer service at purlsoho.com, knitalong at purlsoho.com. We will help you out. We also have tons of tips and tricks in our other Zoom and knits, as I mentioned before. So we're going to move on to show and tell. If you would like to come on screen and show us your sweater or your progress on your sweater, go ahead and raise your hand in Zoom. Lily is going to put the instructions for raising your hand in Zoom. We will spotlight your video and ask you to unmute so you can talk a little bit about your sweater with us. All right. Okay. Who's up first, Jaja?
We have Barbara.
Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Oh,
I think you're muted.
There we go.
You could just.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi, Barbara.
Hey.
Hi.
Love your sweater. Is that fresh pickle?
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
I love, this was my first knit along and I love doing it. Y'all been so helpful. I love Purl Soho. It's been so much. I've already signed up for the next one. So it's going to be great.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Good.
I'm in Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee. Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I know it's always fun to ask where people are from. It's so exciting to know like people all over the country, all over the world are knitting with us. It turned out beautiful. I know
so good.
Gabby
and I emailed y'all and you gave me some help and it was just so good. So good.
Oh,
good. Gabby from our design team also used fresh pickle for her sweater, and Margaret also used fresh pickle for her sweater. So we have
very popular color. Good.
Actually, Margaret, if you want to come next, I was going to have Margaret and Lily come on first. I already forgot, but thank you, Barbara. It turned out beautiful. Thank you for knitting with us.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for sharing with us. Awesome. Thanks, Barbara. Okay. So Margaret, do you want to tell us about your sweater? Because Margaret did some really exciting things with her sweater.
They're not terribly exciting, but they're kind of fun. So hi guys, I'm Margaret. I made a couple modifications for my sweater. So I think Juliana mentioned I cut off the short row shaping at the bottom hem for a straight hemline at the edge, which I just like that fit better, so I decided to do that. And then I knit little heart-shaped patches and put them on the elbows just for a little something fun. So yeah, I wrote my own pattern for these. I also used linen quill, and then I just sewed them down to my sleeve. I used some stitch markers that were removable to help make sure that they all lined up and everything was where it needed to be. Then I sewed them on, and now I have a really cool custom sweater. So yeah.
Very
So
cool.
cute.
So
I can't stand those heart elbow patches.
Margaret, is there a reason you decided to knit them separately and then apply them versus doing duplicate stitch?
It was just the most apparent way to do it in my mind. Like that's
Yeah.
just the way that came first when I thought of the idea.
Yeah, I'm just
But
curious. It's great.
I have thought about doing duplicate stitch for like my initials along like the side of the
Very
heart or
good.
something.
Just
but
keep adding. Just
yes,
keep-
the sweater is never done. But yeah, I'm
Awesome.
absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah, and Pam just asked in chat, where's the jumping off point if I want to use the straight hem? So in the pattern, when you cast on for the body, it says body using a long tail cast on X number of stitches, place a unique marker, work a stockinette stitch for 8 rounds, work your cording stitch. Margaret still did that cording stitch to finish off the edge. It's the same edge that's on every edge. Then the instructions that say shape bottom edge with all the short rows, skip all that, skip all the short rows until it says continue body, continue in stockinette stitch until the piece measures X number of inches from the cast on edge. Margaret, I don't know, did you change the length when you left off the curved hem?
I think I did because I didn't want to account for the extra inches in that curved hem, but I just measured basically as I knit. I kept holding it up to myself and said, okay, I'm happy with this length. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you
really
may
good.
have to adjust the length slightly if you've left off that curved hem, because the curve is, I want to say 3.5 inches of drop at that curve. But other than that, you're just going to cast on, do your cording stitch just like you did on the sleeves, and just start knitting.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Margaret. And thanks for the question, Pam. All right.
Yes. Lily, are you okay? Shooters?
Lily also has some very cute details on hers that are a little different. All right, Lily is also, Margaret and Lily are both members of our
There she
customer
goes.
service team. If you email in with a question, Lily, Margaret, and Jaja are the people who answer it, by the way.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Lily,
so-
tell us about your sweater.
Was you wearing yours?
I am wearing mine. Yeah. So the main modification that I made was doing a contrast color just for the cording stitch. So the colors I used are heirloom white and fresh nutmeg. And so I did, I did heirloom white for the main sweater, and then just added little contrasting color for just the cording stitch and the fresh nutmeg. Because I thought that would look cool, and I'm happy with it.
It does look cool.
Forget.
It's
Did you?
so good.
Oh, sorry. Did you do the contrast color? It was the last 4 stitches of the cording stitch is what you did, right?
So I knit 3 rows at the
3.
beginning in the main color, then I did 5 rows in the contrasting color, and then I did cording stitch. And actually it made the cording stitch so much easier because I knew exactly which stitch to pick up. I wasn't like when it's all in the same color, it's so confusing to know where to put your needle to pick up the stitch. And I know a lot of people were having trouble with that along the way. It was one of the questions we got asked the most in like the customer service inbox. And it is really tricky, but with a contrasting color, you know exactly which stitch to pick up because it's a different color.
I love that. So 3
Awesome.
and 5 is the formula, the secret formula.
We're gonna have to go back and
Lily.
edit that first couple Zoom knits to say, or just use a different color.
Save a lot of time. Okay, next up, we're gonna add Sandy Bernstein.
Hi,
Can
Sandy.
you unmute her?
Yeah, let me, one moment so we can hear you. There we go. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, I use the cattail silk,
Ooh, yes.
Lovely.
and I think I got some, I forget which cotton it is, but one of the cottons that somebody suggested as another
Probably
good,
buttercup cotton.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'll probably, I like the fit, but it's a little bigger than it needs to be.
Totally.
So I think I'll, size down and make it a little bit longer. But I enjoyed it. I like knitting with fingering weight yarns. I like lightweight yarns. So I just really thought it was just a nice pattern. Easy to do.
Awesome.
Good television knitting, travel knitting.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I actually moved across the country while I was knitting mine and thought that would slow me down. It did not, because I could pick it up and knit without thinking about what was happening when I was in airports, when I was in hotels, like wherever I was. It was an easy project to pick up, and it's nice to have that sort of like meditative no-brainer project every once in a while. So I'm glad you found that enjoyable as well.
That it's always interesting to me, like when we redid it in cattail silk, it's like you can hit the same gauge, but you have this very different drape, right? And so like the urge to or the decision to size down is not surprising to me. And even cattail silk, you think like fingering weight, but linen quill has like more dimensionality, like front of the fabric to back of the fabric, and cattail silk is extremely flat. It's like a really flat fabric, and like even that much of a difference can make it feel so different on your body. And I would say if you go for it in the 100% cotton, that cotton is not light. It's like it's a heavy fiber. So I would just, I'm glad you're going to size down, because it's going to wear quite differently, but it'll be a great piece, I think.
I'm thinking of working it top down too.
Cool. Yeah.
So that there's modification, it's hard to modify.
Yeah,
through
you can't try it on
a bottom up sweater. Once you're in there, I mean, because you can't try it on. But I think I could rework this to do it top down.
Definitely.
Totally.
And
yeah, when you've knit a couple sweaters, it becomes really easy to do that, like just reversing, like, oh, instead of decreasing, I'm going to be increasing, and you can reverse those short rows. Not something, we have a lot of people write in asking, can I write this top down? And we always kind of hesitate to say that when somebody's not an experienced sweater knitter, because that's a lot of changes. But, Sandy, you've knit the sweater already. You're familiar with the construction of it. It is something that is a change you can make when you've got a couple sweaters under your belt. And
I've got more than a couple. So that was the other thing. I was doing something more complicated, and having this to switch off to was just such a nice pleasure.
So
yes. Awesome. Well, we're so glad you like it. It looks wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us, Sandy.
No, thank you for such a lovely pattern.
Oh.
And yarn.
All right.
Awesome.
Looks like Lauren D is next.
Okay. Hi, Lauren.
Meeting.
Hi there.
Hi.
Well, I love this pattern too. I'll try to show you. I used the leftovers from that blanket, that used the linen quill.
Yeah.
Are you the
it's so good.
Wonderful.
So I made this one first, and I'm wearing it to pill stage. And I had trouble with the armpits, so I ended up doing a 3-needle bind off on the armpit. I just found that I couldn't get that Kitchener stitch to work, so I made 3 more. I didn't do the armpits.
I'm so glad that's recorded, because I saw all 3 of us go. Whoa.
Presents this year. I've been trying to make one of every size, or like so far. Look, these are all 3 in linen quill. Oh, and this one I made in the other one, the
cattail silk.
The cattail silk.
Yeah, the cattail silk. And then I ran out. at the top.
That is a design choice and it's beautiful.
Up on your, I guess it's
Wow.
and I'm going to take that stuff and just put it around the bottom and put it around the arms too, to
tie it in. That's it. I am like,
Oh
Wow.
I don't think anybody else made 4 sweaters during the knit along. You might, I know Olga, who's here, made 2. 4 might be the most. If anybody made
one right now.
Holy smokes. If anybody made more than 5, like I can't imagine that even being possible. Wow,
I'm
Lauren.
so amazed right now.
Tell you, I think this is about the 3rd size in the order approximately.
Yeah.
I had trouble with this see how it's only on one side, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make those numbers match up for anything. I tried and tried and tried. I ripped it out a bunch of times. And I finally said, I'm just not going to make a matching flap on that one side.
It's called a high-low hem. It's totally a thing.
But I love the pattern. I love the sweater. It's so warm, but it's light. And
Really
I get cold easy. So it's super cozy and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wonderful.
We're
also the
away,
underarm stitches, like opting to do the 3-needle bind off is brilliant. A lot of people argue it's like going to create like a better longevity and structure for this sweater. It just like depends on what you're going for. So like it's a 3-needle bind off is a brilliant use there. That's great.
Well, I did it twice with that Kitchener stitch, and each time I'm sure I like pulled it too tight and it was all
yeah.
I was like, I can't make that work. This yarn is too fine.
Yeah.
So I just thought of that and it seemed to work.
No, totally. I mean, and that's great that you made it yours and you made it work and 5 times over and it's great.
Well, I have a lot of armpits to 3-needle bind off on.
You've got time. You said there were going to be gifts for Christmas?
Yes. I've already had one friend try on the smallest size and it fit her perfectly. That's the other thing I noticed is they grew a lot. I thought they grew a lot.
Huh.
So I'm going to measure all of these sweaters before I wash them and block them and then measure them afterwards.
Yeah.
So I already warned her that the smallest one, it fit her like shaped perfectly, like a shaped sweater. It fit her so beautifully, but she wanted it looser. I said, don't worry, it's going to be
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's incredible.
That's amazing, Lauren. Well, thank you. That's wonderful. All right. We've got, I think it looks like 2 more people waiting to share.
While you're bringing up the next person, I was just thinking like another like huge part, if anybody's like interested in modifying their piece, a huge thing to be aware of is what your swatch is like before you block it and after you block it. Because you could be like trying it on as you go or holding it up as you go, but maybe beforehand you're getting, 9 stitches, 9 rows to the inch, but after you block it, you get 7 rows to the inch. So like sometimes holding it up as you go isn't as good as like getting in there and counting. So, but it's with certain fabrics, like anything with linen in it, silks, cottons, I feel like they really, really change before and after blocking. Whereas like sometimes wools will like hold up more like true, a little bit closer. Anyway,
elasticity.
It can really bite you in the bum. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I mean, I also have, and this is, maybe it's a me thing. I tend to occasionally knit differently in my swatch than I do in my actual sweater, which is also something like we've seen several people who sort of did like a little blocking break partway through, especially a sweater like this, because you've got your sleeve first. Especially if it's your first couple sweaters, if you don't know if you knit differently when you're doing a sweater compared to your swatch, when you've got a couple inches of your sleeve done, stop, put it on scrap yarn, block that sleeve and check to make sure you're still getting the same stitches per inch. Because that's something, I don't do it as much now, but I know at least as I was saying, how my very first sweater came out huge. I did a gauge swatch and it was fine. And then discovered when I'm actually knitting a long row, I tend to like relax and knit a little looser.
Yeah.
And when
a lot of people knit their sleeves tighter than their body. A lot.
That too. Yes.
It's you learn these things.
Yes. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes progress. All right. Hi, Tracy. How are you? Well, let's see. You're still muted. There we are. Hi, Tracy.
Hi. I did mine and I got a lot of help. Margaret rewrote my pattern for me because my stitch count was so bad on my neck. So she had me frog it back just 4 rows and she rewrote it so it would do the neck for me. And it came out wonderful. So thank you so much for your help. My daughter said it's itchy. It's in the linen quill, but I haven't blocked it yet. So I'm hoping that'll.
You gotta block it. Linen quill gets so much softer after it's blocked. Okay. And it actually
the first thing besides a scarf that I knit with it. So
yeah, and give it time, because like not only is it softer after blocking, they get softer each time you wear it. And I think that's kind of the linen in it. I have a linen quill sweater that I knit 2 or 3 years ago, and even that feels way different from this one. Like it just wear it, love it. Like Laura was saying, she throws a swatch in her purse and carries it around for a while. You can really see how a yarn will change when you do that. But yeah, it looks great, Tracy.
My swatches, I found my stitches, the stitch count changes on me when I knit in the round from when I knit flat. So if I do a swatch it with the sleeve, then I know what my gauge will be better for knitting in the round.
Yeah, but, it's those people knit and purl at different tensions. Almost everyone. It's like a freak of nature if you can do them perfectly the same.
After 12 years, I kind of know I have to go down a needle size at least. I don't even try to swatch for the recommended needle size. Yeah, I have a favorite sweater. I was going to ask you, I have a favorite one. The first one I ever knit, and I actually just sewed the shoulders in. So I'm proud of it because I've never gotten a shoulder delay like that. It's wearing, like it's pilling and everything. Is there a way to save it? Because it's just a cardigan and it's so comfortable, and I don't know how it was knit in acrylic. And
it's acrylic.
It's pilling, and I'd love to save it where I can still wear it out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I know Purl Soho, we sell both a comb and kind of more of a rake product for de-pilling things. Okay. And pilling is kind of, it's a little bit of just like a part of our lives. I have to, whether you're working in a natural yarn or not acrylic yarn.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it.
So there's like, you can fight the beast. Like, I think you can like bring it back to life, but there's gonna be a little bit of that where like age is sweaters patina a bit, but maybe Margaret or Lily can throw the link to the comb and the rake in there. And I would test it out on a small piece, like maybe on the inside of the back or something, just to make sure that it agrees with the fabric of your sweater, because those combs and rakes are really made for like a natural fiber. And sometimes depending on how the acrylic is spun and stuff, I don't want it to like pull at the fabric.
Sure. And it's got a lot of cabling in it too, and I don't want to ruin the cable in it.
Totally.
I was ambitious for my first sweater. So.
Harder to de-pill for sure. But it should be able to lift those pills from the outermost surface, maybe not like the crevices between the cables.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for the hint. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm sure the customer service team has even more.
Yeah.
They can
reach out. Email us back. We have like a much bigger list of tips and tricks to help you with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Tracy.
Through the hurricane.
Go ahead,
Tracy. And everything through the hurricane. So.
Are you in the path of the hurricane?
The bright sky. We're so happy. So.
We're
in South Carolina. We weren't in the worst of it, but we yesterday was hunkered down and knitting. Yeah.
I'm
so glad you're safe.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Tracy. Okay, it is 2:00, but I know there's still a couple people waiting. So let's try to get through a couple more because we do want to see your sweaters and celebrate with you. So let's see. I think we've got 2 more people. Sarah, hi. Oh, Sarah, I recognize you from Instagram. We put one of your photos in one of our newsletters recently, right?
Oh, muted.
Oh, we can't hear you. I know you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Oh, but it looks so good. You're unmuted, but you might have to turn your microphone on.
That's that, like, is that cattail silk in that brilliant, like, sea foamy color? It's like barely a color.
So.
It's so good.
Oh, we still can't hear you, Sarah. I'm so sorry. If you can type something in chat, I will read it out for everybody. But we can definitely see your sweater and we love it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful color for your complexion and your hair. You're just like an angel.
Very ethereal. Oh, well, I'm sorry we're not able to get audio, but thank you for sharing with us anyway, Sarah. It's lovely to see your sweater. Thank you. All right, bye. Okay, we've got one more person waiting. We're going to talk with real quick. Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi. So my first sweater was for her.
Hi.
Oh, hi. We've seen you on Instagram too. Hi.
Yeah. So she's it was for her birthday present. I finished it 2 days before her birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
Don't
it was my
use
first
it at school because that's what my kids always do with their sweaters. Just saying.
It was my first sweater ever. She loves it. I mean, she's ecstatic with it. I told her don't use it or I'll have to kill but I can't wait to make another one. I have is it red poppy?
Yes,
it's a red
that's
poppy.
A beautiful color.
I think that's the color she picked. Yeah. And then there's 2 more kids or 3 more kids. The girls want them. And I'm like, okay. So I have red poppy, I have the black, I have the turmeric, I have high tide. I have a lot of to go through.
Amazing.
Oh, well, it turned out great. Congratulations on your first sweater. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
She's been trying it on from sleeves, running around with the sleeves. Then she'd have the waist, like, okay, just a little bit more, Mom. And then it'd be up to the armpit and like round the armpits and
just cheering you on. I love the
and then she just stares like, are you done yet? I'm like, no, I'm not done yet.
And have you put needles in her hands yet? That's my question.
She has started knitting. She's knitting an acrylic blanket.
Okay.
If I can find it.
If she can find it. We switched rooms, got a new house, and moved in. And then she has her own room. Now that's what she's doing after this, is cleaning up.
Awesome. Well, that's so great. I mean, I didn't finish knitting anything till I was probably 18. I started a lot of projects before then, but so that's wonderful that you're both knitting together and the sweater turned out fantastic. Great job.
It was, I did mess up. I took off my, where the seams split on their top and, front and back. And I'm like, oh no. So I kind of guesstimated. I think like one side's a little shorter on the front than the back. I'm like, it doesn't matter, you're wearing it.
There are a lot of mistakes you can get away with in knitting. Honestly, I've left many a strange thing in a sweater, and if you just don't tell anybody, they'll never know.
No. And like, it's that old age adage, you always have a mistake so you don't leave your soul in it, so your soul can escape, is an Irish proverb that I always think is funny. Like, I have lots of mistakes, so my soul's safe. So that's
awesome.
it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kate, and Kate's daughter. Great job.
I found it.
All right. Okay. I think we've gotten through everybody. And holy cow, we've gotten through a whole knit along together. I can't believe we all made it and that we all made sweaters or are making sweaters. This is so fantastic. I've already worn mine several times. I went to our county fair and wore my sweater to the county fair. And I can tell it's just so easy to throw on and wear anywhere. So I can tell it's a real staple. And I hope you all love your sweaters as much as I do. As with all of our Zoom and knits, we're going to get this meeting uploaded to YouTube as soon as we can, in case you want to watch Laura's wonderful design inspiration again, or review the tips about how to choose your next sweater. If you want to find out when it's uploaded, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll get a notification right away. Lily just put that link in the chat for you. And Jaja wants to talk about. Oh, go ahead, Jaja.
Sorry, before I get to that, I did see Amy write a question in the chat, and I just wanted to acknowledge it, that she was asking about if we'll be teaching continental knitting at all. We have a long list of things that we're working on for tutorials, so I can't say whether or not that's on the list, but if there's anything you directly want help with, you're always, again, free to reach out to us via email or do a one-on-one. I actually am a continental knitter myself, so if you want to talk there, we can do that for sure.
Yeah, we definitely have continental knitters on our staff. And so if you want to do a one-on-one, I do both. Jaja's a continental knitter. Lily and Margaret, I believe, are not continental knitters, but it's good to learn. I do one project a year in continental knitting just to keep it fresh. But yeah, we can help with that.
Yes,
any pattern can be knit either in the English style or the continental style. Generally, there are not huge modifications to make, if any modifications. So if you have questions, if you're switching to continental, reach out. We will help.
Yeah. Okay. But the thing that we were going to talk about next, I don't know if anyone really noticed, but people that were already signed up for this knit along should have also gotten a precursor to what the next one's going to be. And it's been on the website, but sneak peek, the Bandana Cowl. Let me stand up a little bit so you can see it a little more. We have
here with
Juliana. Juliana's got one. Margaret's got one on. I'm pretty sure everyone on the team has made one at some point or another. And just in particular, since I have you guys, and I think everyone knows me for my just dragon stash. I feel like a dragon, right? Just for treasure. But I have plenty with me that I just want to show you. And just for anybody that has trouble with fingering weights or just arthritis, things like that. This yarn is just so super cushy. I have it next to some linen quill just for comparison. I wanted to show. Just both beautiful to work with. We've got this thinner weight, the linen, and you can see the tweediness. But this one is just so, let me get in camera, the view, really just cushy, just really soft and cushy. I feel like one of the #1 questions we've been getting is, oh, why do we recommend a US 10 when the product calls for 8 or 9? And it's just because we call it a heavy worsted weight, but I feel like it's borderline bulky with the way it works up. And so that just helps it drape a little more. So we're really excited that this is going to be the next one.
It also makes this project a one skein project. When you put it up on that size 10, your yarn goes a little further. So you just need one skein for a bandana cowl, which is pretty
exactly. And so I can attest, it took only one. And that's going to be the cast on day. We've already have this sign up available on the website, so you can get a coupon again towards the plenty. But it's going to be October 13th at 6 p.m. So it's coming up. Today's October 1st. So we'll be hosting that. We've had this under our belt, and I think we'll be able to take our time more with just the construction of it, right, Juliana?
Yeah, it's a really fast. I mean, this was a 7-month knit along. Our bandana cowl knit along is a 6-week knit along. It's going to be over. The last day is going to be November 30th. But this is a much faster project. I mean, people are already finishing them. There's no penalty for casting on early. And I have already seen on Instagram a couple people who have finished theirs. So it's a really, the last one I did, this is actually a kid size one, and I did it in one night. It took me, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 hours to knit. The adult ones probably take more like 6 or 7 hours. So it's really the opposite project.
We want something different.
Yeah, so I hope you'll all join us. Yeah, I'm planning all my, maybe not all, but most of my holiday presents this year are going to be bandana cowls.
Oh yeah, everyone's getting one.
Yes, everyone's getting one. I'm making probably 5 or 6 during the knit along. But yeah, so we hope you'll join us for that. There is a link in the chat to go and sign up for the Bandana Cowl knit along. The Lightweight Raglan Pullover knit along may have officially ended, but all the beautiful sweaters you all have made are going to live on Instagram. You can, I know I follow the Purl Soho KAL hashtag, so I can see everybody's progress. And on our website. You've probably noticed that if you go to purlsoho.com and you click join our KAL, it now takes you to the Bandana Cowl landing page. But we're not taking down the Lightweight Raglan Pullover one. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of our homepage, there's a link that says KAL Archive. Currently there's where you can access the Lightweight Raglan Pullover page. In the future, because obviously this is the first of many knit-alongs, that will be a link where you can always check back in. You'll find links to all of our Zoom and Knit recordings there. You can browse the gallery of gorgeous images that everyone has submitted, so you can always go back and reminisce a little bit. Lily just put a link to that page in the chat now if you want to check it out.
And if you didn't finish yours or you already want to get started on the next one, you can still use the knit along inbox for questions for either or, and we'll answer them. We monitor all of the inboxes, so you can reach out to us at customerservice@purlsoho.com, knitalong@purlsoho.com, and we also have the one-on-one project help where you can just sign up for a free one-on-one session over Zoom. You'll get a little appointment, and we take a look at your questions in advance. Usually, I think it's about a 24 hours notice, so we can prepare. But you can sign up for all of those. I think Lily's going to put those in the chat as well, just so you guys can see. And we hope to reach out to you. Well, we're here for you all the time, Monday through Sunday. There's somebody watching.
I mean, as always, thank you all for coming to our Zoom and Knit. Thank you for joining our knit along. This has been an amazing knitting journey. You know, being part of it, watching everybody else's journey. It's been really inspiring and fantastic. All of us at Purl Soho have been so inspired by your knits. Like we talk about your pictures, we share them with each other. It's super exciting. And we just couldn't have done this without all of you joining in and knitting with us. So thank you so much. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today, Jaja, Lily, and Margaret. And please stay in touch. Tag us on Instagram, and we hope we'll see you in the Bandana Cowl knit along. All right.
And thank you, Juliana, for hosting.
My pleasure. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. We'll see you soon.